What's this? A storm?
Oh,
Something's brewing.
what the hell is going on?
Is it, perchance, the NFL Elementary YouTube channel? There we go.
What's that?
I like to plan these little surprises at the start of the show and not tell anyone I'm doing them and watch their faces go in shock and horror.
It's like, it's not even tenuous though. It's like, it's so far beyond tenuous. Like,
Yeah, I'm not sure what the relevance is
I
here.
just saw Rain and Thunder and thought I could
Hey,
do
the
something
duck's
with
back.
it. Yeah, shout out Duck. Also, shout out our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Woo! We will, well, you can't actually find it on YouTube at the moment because we haven't uploaded any videos. We'll talk a bit more about that later on in the show. We will also be doing our NFC predictions. How thrilling. The exciting side of the NFL.
Yeah.
It's funny because last week we were talking about how some divisions are so, or some am I right? Divisions, yeah. Some divisions are so boring that we could just run through them, and then we tried to do that with this week, and we can't really come up with any. I mean, I have the NFC East is quite boring, but that's something to get into soon. I think that's everything, isn't it? It will be a busy show, but it will be a singularly focused show. How are we all doing today?
Yeah.
Everyone's good. This is the last week for a while that all four of us will be here, unfortunately. Might just be me and Max next week, or Liam if he can pull through, but we'll manage it. We'll manage it. We'll do
It'll be
a
okay.
funny and irreverent show. I have some ideas.
Oh god.
Are you going to tell Max about them? Or are you just
Yeah.
No, I'm just going to
I'm
pounce
gonna
him
be
with
sat
them.
here and he's gonna be doing all this weird stuff, and I'm just gonna be like, oh, I don't know what to do.
There's just gonna be a point where you're gonna hear the door, and then like Colin's just gonna be like, Max has left.
He quit the show. I went too
A
far.
solo NFL Elementary.
Yeah.
We are live on YouTube.
Go to youtube.com/URY1350.
Interestingly, do not go to youtube.com/URY1350, or do if you are so inclined. We don't actually have one of them links for our channel yet because it's not official, but once we have the link we'll sort it out. But basically the plan for the YouTube channel is, as we have been hinting at for the last couple of weeks, we're going to be uploading these shows without the music, obviously for copyright reasons, onto there so more people can access them. It's not just a link to a Mixcloud, it's a link to an actual YouTube video, but they will just be pure audio. But then throughout the summer and then going into next year, when there's too much to talk about for just an hour show, we'll start to do our own videos independent of the show. The show will still remain, don't worry about that. We will have our show every week, although it may be a different time slot. More on that in the next couple of weeks. But we will also have this YouTube channel from which we can do literally anything we want. So if there's anything you guys want to see on our YouTube channel, please do get in touch. At NFL Elementary is the Twitter handle, or message us in on the show. Equally, if you want to tell us, my predictions are great. 07851 101313. That's 07851 101313. That's the number to text, or send us a message on the website ury.org.uk. We'd love to hear from you guys. So, commencing with the NFC East. Apologies for the loud shouting in the background. We'll go and sort that out later. Starting with the NFC East. So, does anyone not have Philadelphia winning?
No,
I have them winning.
I have them winning.
Max?
I'm pretty sure Dallas don't have them winning, but
Or Skip Bayless?
yeah. I mean, Philadelphia's a hard one because I have got them down at 12-4. Because when you look at the schedule and you think about the way they played last year, I can only see them losing those 4 games, which I believe includes the last game of the season against Washington, because they've already got what they would need
That's
to
where we're
get.
different then, yeah.
But it's an interesting one because the mentality will be different this year playing against a team like Philadelphia. We know what they're like now. We know what they're capable of. And now they will be the hunted team rather than the team hunting like they were last year.
Yeah. They don't have that underdog mentality anymore, do they?
They don't.
Which carried them through.
But in a weird way, I feel like some of the players still do. For instance, Carson Wentz still kind of has to prove himself because he went out. And you've got guys like Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey who still in that
Buy
weird
into
way.
that mentality,
yeah, they still feel that way. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to suffer from Super Bowl hangover or not. I hope not.
The other thing to say as well is this isn't your typical Super Bowl winning team. It's not as if they've won the Super Bowl and gone, great, we've got a 53-man roster that can win the Super Bowl. Wicked.
Yeah.
The changes they've made, like bringing in Ngata, is that how you say his name? Nyata, I don't know. Haloti, the fella from Detroit Lions, the D tackle, bringing him in to fortify that defensive line. Sheldon Richardson,
Michael Bennett.
Michael Bennett, yeah, not Sheldon Richardson. He's gone to the Vikings. Bringing him in, if obviously all that police stuff gets sorted out. They tried to freshen up their cornerback group, but that's the whole Darryl Worley thing, where he got traded from Carolina and then got arrested.
Yeah.
And now, interestingly, he's signed with the Oakland Raiders. So there you go.
Classic.
It's is it Howie Smith?
Who's Howie Smith?
The GM.
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't just rested on his laurels and gone, yeah, cool, we're the best team in the league, wicked. He's taken active decisions to improve the team, and not only just address weaknesses, but also address areas of strength like that D-line, like we said. And we've got Jason Peters coming back at left tackle. We've got all these other players coming back from injury who will really add something, like Carson Wentz, hopefully.
Another one, Darren Sproles, as a vet coming back, who missed pretty much all of last year, didn't he? So,
and I think also having the 3 running backs, like you said, like that, a bit like how there's 2 quarterbacks who have to fight every week, Carson Wentz going to have to fight every week to prove that he can do the job.
Yeah.
With 3 running backs, like the same is true there. Like those 3 running backs are going to need to prove week in, week out that they should be the starting running back.
The one thing I will say is Ajayi has to prove that he can be the power runner.
Because they lost
Blunt, yeah. So, and Ajayi, I think he can play that role, because I think any athletic player who weighs more than a certain weight can play the power back role, but that's a discussion for another day. And I think he'll be fine in that. And then you have him, is it Corey Clement? Who went off in the Super Bowl? Yeah, 4 catches, 100 yards. Yeah, absolute hero. And then, like you said, you've got Sproles coming back, who can be that kind of mentor and the experienced guy in the room. And it's still a very good player, even though he's a bit older, and it doesn't seem to be the trend to go with older running backs. But I think he can definitely still give something. I don't think I see an immediate weakness in that team, apart from maybe cornerback. But when you've got a D-line than they do...
I think Philadelphia's biggest issue this year might be, and this isn't actually reflected in my predictions, but that's because predicting it in this way is so hard. But I expect Dallas to be better. I know they've lost a couple of key players, but... They've lost Des Bryant, who either runs from the left to the right, from the right to the left, or that's about it.
Well, he runs a slant, a go, or a post. From the left. And, so he can only turn right. He's like Zoolander, basically.
I do expect Dallas to be better. I expect the Giants to be better. And even though the Giants were pretty bad last year due to injuries and whatnot, they almost beat Philadelphia twice.
Yeah.
So that could be a game they lose. And Washington are just, I have no idea. But Alex Smith wins, so...
Yeah. We've had a message in. Bennett is toxic to any D-line. Interesting.
Well, that seems a bit cruel.
Yeah. Poor Michael Bennett. If you'd like to expand on that and give us some reasons, we'd love to hear him.
Isn't Michael Bennett the one that after he just got signed ended up pushing over a disabled woman?
No, he got signed and then he had pushed over a disabled woman in the last Super Bowl or something, because he said he was rushing on to celebrate with his brother.
Yeah.
And she was trying to tell him to stop or something, I don't know. But that's what he's in trouble for.
Yeah.
So
that's his latest.
I don't know if I'd go as far as toxic, but he has some off-field issues. So Philly at 1, I've got them 13-3.
Yeah,
that seems to be like a consensus area.
11-5, but still number 1.
Still number 1, yeah. Who do we have at 2? I've got the Giants.
The Giants at 2.
See, I've got the Cowboys and Giants tying at the moment, but
on what record?
6-10, but that's not very good.
I've got Giants on 7-9.
See, I've got Dallas on 6-10.
I've gone a lot better for the Giants. I've got the Giants at 10-6.
See, I really wanted to, because you look at that team on paper, without those injuries and everything, they could be great. I'm just looking at the rest of the field and I'm thinking, but I think they're going to be good and they're going to be good, and then it's like Dallas and the Giants have just suffered from that.
I think the Giants are a team that I could probably happily go 9-7, which is roughly similar to you.
I just compared them to Dallas, and I just thought the Giants on their best day are better than the Cowboys on their best day.
Yeah.
Just looking at what they've got, and I only have the Cowboys going 8-8. And initially, I had them with the same record, and then I thought about it again, and they gave the Giants the edge.
I think
big year for the Giants.
The Giants may be suffering from a case of overhyped, because...
But it's now or never for them, because if Eli doesn't do it now, they're just going to blow it up, aren't they?
Yeah.
If they have a top 10 pick again, Eli's done.
But if you're a Giants fan, you can get excited about Saquon and you can get excited about Will Hernandez, and I think you can get excited about the draft. But equally, if I'm a Giants fan, knowing what I know as a Panthers fan, which is kind of a contradiction, but I can't get excited about picking up Jonathan Stewart. I can't get excited about picking up Mike Schuler as our offensive coordinator.
I'd be excited about picking up a left tackle who functions though.
Yeah, I suppose.
Eli upright. Eli didn't have a great year last year, but on the days he was upright, he was fine. Like it was the day.
He's also getting Odell back this year.
Yeah.
The thing is, as well, it's 2 years ago they went 11-5, made it to the playoffs, and the reason, well, I'm not going to say the only reason they lost to Green Bay was because it's Aaron Rodgers, but Beckham didn't show up. He'd been partying in Miami. The whole thing just went terribly.
Yeah.
So last year, I don't know if it was a blip. Ben McAdoo just wasn't the guy anyway.
Who've they've got? Is it Pat Shermer?
Yeah.
Is their new coach? So a bit of an offensive guru.
I think
I think
they could be really good.
I think I was more going down the line of like, I don't think they're gonna make huge steps up, but I think that Saquon Barkley is good enough that he'll win them games, just because he won't necessarily be. A lot of the times when a new running back comes in, they have one season of just no one knows how to stop them. Like you haven't really played against him before. Admittedly, there will be a lot of tape on him, which probably helps. But it kind of...
I agree with you. I think he's got the running style to adjust to the NFL. It's quite like... I hate the fact that if a runner does something where they simply kind of just wait at the line for half a second, all of a sudden you get comparisons to Le'Veon Bell and they're a patient runner, etc. But he is that kind of runner where he will wait and look for the gaps and then go through them rather than just trying to kind of blast through everything.
So I think the 9-7 for me wasn't necessarily that the Giants going to be this changed team, but more that Saquon Barkley's just going to do enough that wins them games. And so like 9-7, I think is perfectly respectable for them.
I have them 10-6 being edged out of the playoffs by another team who's 10-6.
Yeah,
we all agreed that they
I think
don't make
Giants
the
will be at 2. I don't have them making the playoffs.
Yeah, but I have them with a good record, but still not getting.
And then number 3, Dallas.
Yeah,
Dallas. I have Dallas 8-8, very average.
Yeah, I think that's
6
about.
and 10.
I like Dak.
I just
if he's allowed to play his way.
I just think,
and there are restrictions on that. So.
Functional Dak plus Zeke is good enough for 8 wins.
Yeah,
but the lack of the rest probably gives them 8 losses. And
so at least they'll have that O-line back. So
I do feel like to a certain degree we're discrediting Washington a little bit. I know I've got them at 3-13. I looked at the schedule and I'm thinking, oh my god, this is a horrific schedule. But at the same time, they do not have a bad roster.
3-13.
And last year, I think they finished, was it 7-9? Considering the fact they had the whole dysfunctional Kirk Cousins thing as well going on, they drafted pretty well.
I've got them. So they lose their first game, then they win their second game, then they win against Green Bay.
What?
Off to a 2-1 record.
Disagree.
They're going to beat Green Bay.
Yeah, I've got the first 3 weeks for Washington are great, and then they proceed to lose the next 11 games. Is it 11? No, more than 11. The next 13 games. On a 13-game losing streak to finish off the season.
Nice.
Wow.
I didn't go that far, but I mean they don't start well in my predictions, and then they pick up mildly. 3-13. I mean,
I've got them 5-11, so I feel a bit more generous. But
I think Jay Gruden just feels a bit tired in Washington, and I think that defense, which to be fair they are adding to, and they're making it so they can't be run on, when maybe it would be more pertinent to them. Like they seem to think that Josh Norman will answer all their questions in the secondary, and yeah, sure he's a great player, and I'd love to have him back in Carolina one day if he's ever interested, but he can't like rule the secondary on his own.
No.
He can take one man and isolate him, and then it's kind of up to everyone else to sort out.
But the only thing I think is the fact that they weren't happy with Cousins for whatever reason, and now they're happy with Alex Smith, who is a very similar kind of player.
Yeah,
you've got to wonder whether or not they've got to get better, surely. But then I don't see the room because the Giants are going to be better and the Cowboys supposedly will be better and the Eagles will still be good.
And the NFL? The NFC is just so strong at the moment that unless you become one of the superstar teams, you're not going to be getting those high records.
Okay, so quickly recapping the NFC East then. We've got Philly at 1, Giants at 2, Dallas at 3, Washington at 4.
Mm-hmm. But the Giants not making the playoffs.
Yeah, all across the board.
Yeah.
Right, well, should we just go straight on?
Yeah.
Try and get the NFC North out the way. Yeah. So this is basically actually, to be fair, the whole division is quite exciting because you can frame it any which way you want. So I quite like Chicago this year. Not enough to put them at 1 or 2, but I do quite like them. Equally, I don't like Detroit ever. So they're at 4.
Well, I've slated Detroit, and I thought, I've been a bit harsh. And then I was watching some bits and pieces this morning, and it was pointed out that Detroit managed to miss the playoffs with no Aaron Rodgers in the division.
Yeah.
So, good luck is what I would say there.
Yeah, I've got Green Bay at 1, going on a 13-3 record, and then the Vikings at 2, going on a 12-4 record.
See, I've got the same, just flipped.
The other way around.
I've got Minnesota at 13-3, Green Bay 12-4.
It's probably just one game I've elected Green Bay to win over Minnesota.
I have the Packers at 1, 11-5, and the Vikings at 2, 10-6, making the playoffs over the Giants.
Yeah.
See, I had Minnesota at 11-5, Green Bay at 9-7. Like,
ooh, interesting.
Yeah, because
someone's not an A-Rod believer.
No, well, I just don't think that A-Rod can do it on his own. Like, I feel that
he's Team Olivia Munn, obviously.
Very, very often, like, I feel that is Green Bay is that Green Bay is just Aaron Rodgers, and I think looking at their past seasons, although they have done really well with just Aaron Rodgers, there have also been years where they haven't done well with just Aaron Rodgers.
They have. They've given him. He's still got.
Randall Cobb.
He's still got his outside weapons, and then they've given him Graham and the other big guy, for whose name's escaping me. But they've given him 2 big kind of possession targets as well, which is which will help him out a lot. So I just can't see Aaron Rodgers doing anything other than winning that division now.
I think I know it's not just a one-man sport, but equally he's coming back from a pretty bad injury, which he'd hoped to be back for earlier. I can see him coming out and just absolutely laying it on everyone, which I think he will. There's quite a few exciting games that they've got this year. I think they played New England this year in New England. That's going to be amazing to watch.
I've got them winning that.
So I don't know. I think
I've got them winning.
The last time, I know it doesn't always repeat, but the last time that he shattered his collarbone and came back, he then won MVP the next season because he felt like he had to prove something. And maybe he feels that way again. It's new management in Green Bay. It's
also got Kaiser breathing down his neck.
Deshaun Kaiser. Oh, yeah.
Like, as much as he had an awful season last year, he was a good prospect.
It's just like Philadelphia, but it's Rodgers and Kaiser.
yeah.
On my backup rankings, he scored quite highly. So,
Dear.
I mean, like, they have taken steps to address the defense, and I know I saw a stat where it's like in 5 of the last 6 drafts, Green Bay have selected a cornerback in the first round, which is bordering on absurd.
They got 2 corners though, didn't they?
Yeah.
So that makes a big
Josh Jackson and who was their first round filler?
Jair Alexander.
Yeah.
The only thing is though, do you trust 2 rookie cornerbacks?
Yeah, actually. If they're gonna stick him on an island and just man up, yeah, I would.
Mate, I can play cornerback.
To be fair, you probably could. I mean, speaking as Carolina, where we had.
I mean, you see rookies come in and play corner very well.
Yeah,
it must be said, because
how much of that's to do with the presence of someone on the other side?
Compare that to what Minnesota's defense will do, and Chicago's defense, and the fact that Detroit now have a defensive-minded coach too. It's kind of like the whole field has had a look at what's going on with Green Bay and thinking, how do we beat them? We have to do it through defense.
Well, the mentality for a Green Bay defense, though, you can still be. They can probably go into a game and think, all we have to do is hold them under 25.
Yeah.
Like, that's different to hold them under, like, 15 or
that
10
might be true, but I think last year their defense... Now, I can't remember if in the end it ended up this way, but they were the only team by the time they played Carolina, which was quite late in the season, wasn't it? Because that's when Aaron Rodgers came back. They were the only team that every time a team against them had got to the red zone, they scored every single time. Green Bay were the only team to let that team score every single time.
That's also to do with probably coaching a lot, and they've let go of their defensive coordinator, haven't they? I can't remember his name for the life of me, but and hired someone new, and they've also got a new GM in who's making changes and trades. And I think it could be an exciting time to be a Green Bay fan.
I feel that I was with Minnesota winning that, just because I think the Green Bay and Minnesota are sort of almost linked as 1-2, with me and Max going Minnesota, you two going Green Bay. So I think that my thinking on it was that it would be very much the same team that we saw last year, but I'm not sure that's necessarily going to be true
with Minnesota.
Offense. Yeah, with Minnesota.
Well, they've got Cousins, don't they?
Well, I genuinely And this is not a slight on Cousins at all. This is to say Cousins is actually, I rate him. I don't think anyone could really play better than Keenum did last year.
Yeah.
So if he has a similar performance as Keenum did, they're going to be very, very much the same.
The other thing to remember as well is Dalvin Cook coming back is pretty much like having a rookie, because he didn't play enough for all the teams to have enough tape on him to know what he's going to do.
Yeah, he was exciting the first few
And he was very exciting,
yeah.
and that adds a completely different dimension.
Interestingly, someone's just got in touch. I think referring to the Carolina game, wasn't that Rodgers' worst game ever as well? Granted, he came back too early from his injury. I can happily inform you it was one of his worst games ever. 3 interceptions, picked off by the outstanding Panthers secondary.
What was he
lost
supposed
the game.
to do?
He gambled though, didn't he? He gambled that you come back.
He got forced to gamble by, the incredible Panthers defense and offense.
He gambled on turning up. He could have said, no, I'm not ready and not played, but he thought, hey, we're in a position where if I win all these games...
He still made some good throws, but...
Made some very good
throws. I think, to be fair, I know I'm very, Panthers heavy, but if you are going to come back, a defense you don't want to face is the Panthers because of that front seven.
True, but it's a decent test to at least see where you are.
I suppose,
I mean, the Packers, I don't think they were going to make it anyway. I don't think they would have done even if they won out.
Oh, what, as it turned out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, anyway, they wouldn't have done.
You got to try, though, haven't you?
Yeah.
But we've all got Packers and Vikings 1 and 2.
Yeah, just in various different orders.
And both making the playoffs, obviously.
Yeah.
I didn't have Green Bay making the playoffs.
Oh, because you put them 9 and 7.
Yeah.
Is this another Mark prediction where we all laugh at it and call it stupid and it actually turns out to be true?
Aaron Rodgers gets injured.
You've got Cleveland with the same record as Green Bay.
I do.
Can I just highlight this? You've got Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield doing as well as Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, Baker Mayfield, watch it.
Oh, God. Yeah. Baker Mayfield fan club over there.
I mean, this is what's going to happen. Aaron Rodgers is going to get injured in the third game, and you guys are all just going to be looking over at me like, 9-7's looking pretty good now.
Who do we have at 3? Chicago or Detroit? I really like Chicago.
I have Detroit at 3.
Oh, guys, come on.
They haven't got, I don't have them with a winning record. I have them 7-9. And then
I have Chicago 7-9.
I went 8-8.
I've got Detroit and Chicago both 7-9, but Detroit winning it on tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Discuss that.
Detroit 7-9, Chicago 6-10.
I think Chicago. This is the leapfrog into next year, which is their year. This is where Trubisky gets to know Nagy and his offense. This is where their running back room becomes the explosion that it could be with Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen. It's where they start to move away from it somewhat and let it become more potent and less just ground and poundy. They give Trubisky more responsibility. They let their new receiving core do something for Trubisky. They let that offense line keep burgeoning. They let that defense, which is really coming along, grow a little bit more. This year is a 7-9. Next year is potentially 11-5, 12-4.
That's
in
what
that
I've
division
said before, though.
And into the playoffs.
It could be very much like Philadelphia in the sense they've got a great base with great players.
They just need time to gel and grow.
Their year.
Are you the only one who has the
Chicago at 3? Yeah, apparently.
In fairness, though, it could easily have been Chicago at 3 had it not been the tiebreaker.
They're very similar, but it's close. But
the thing is I just, for me,
it'll be better for sure.
The Lions with Matthew Stafford, I find it really hard to give him such a low record because he pulls them out of such ridiculous situations.
Didn't 2 years ago he have the best comeback record?
No, I'm not even going on about it like that. I'm just saying, how giving Detroit a 4-12 record seems so
No, he's worth a few wins. That's why
the thing.
That's why I've got him 7-9 because he's probably fourth quarter comebacks wise he's he's very, very good.
I had them sort of 8 of 8. I just see them as sort of that classic middle of the road team. They're just
and like I said, they missed the playoffs with Rodgers not there. So,
but then I suppose the problem is Rodgers is back, the Vikings are here, and the Bears are better.
Yeah.
So maybe they are the fourth team where it's sorry, but
Well, what are we saying then?
I mean, because we've all got
Detroit at 3, it makes sense. Yeah.
But because we've all got the Packers and the Vikings making it, it's kind of
negligible who comes first.
I'd rather have the Bears come third. I don't know.
Who we say at 1 then? So I'll do a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and we'll say who's at 1. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Vikings.
There we go. We're tied.
Have you said Packers as well? Yeah.
I could easily see the Packers winning because Rodgers coming out.
Who would, if it came to it, would you want Rodgers or do you want Cousins?
Rodgers all the way.
There we go. Right, Packers at 1, Vikings at 2, both making the playoffs. Then I'm happy to go Detroit at 3 because you guys obviously all have them there, and then Chicago at 4. But it's kind of 2 brackets, isn't it? So you've got the top 2 and the bottom 2.
Just to let you know, Colin, if Green Bay makes the playoffs and and Minnesota make the playoffs on my list, then that means that Carolina don't.
That's just not happening.
Only on your list, though.
Yeah, in your crazy world.
Send us a message via the website.
ury.org.uk.
Just on that note, I think there might be some kind of technical issue with our messaging system through the website. So if you are messaging in, please do try. Equally, if you have my number, text me. And oh no, don't worry. It's not. It was a blank mistake by my mum, who's listening back in Lewisham. So bless her. Don't worry about it. We don't have issues. Yeah. Hi, Mum. Hope you're all right. Speak to you later. Anyway, on with the show. NFC West. What we saying? Rams at 1.
Yes. I have a Rams cakewalk.
Yeah.
And
same.
Everyone else is irrelevant.
Kind of, yeah. I've got San Francisco at 8-8.
You're about to. You've just poked the bear that is the Jimmy Garoppolo fan club. You've got San Francisco at 8-8.
Whoa!
I've got them higher than you.
I have them at 6-10. I don't think they're going to
Really?
Hey, don't get me wrong.
I have them at 11-5.
I have them at 10-6.
I love them, but have you seen their schedule? It's brutal, and I think the idea of them winning more games, I just feel is a little too out of reach.
I think that's.
And I mean, in some ways, I kind of want them to go 11 wins and then 5 straight losses, just so that Jimmy G can continue his unbeaten streak. But I haven't actually got that.
I mean, that opening game of the season's in Minnesota, isn't it?
Like I have.
I
think I might have them.
Could you go to a worse place week 1?
I have them like I said, the Rams like cakewalking it 11-5. And then the Cardinals and the Seahawks, both 7-9, and then the 49ers 6-10. It's just like 3 teams of average.
Yeah, like this is a weird one because it's almost like in the space of 2 years, the division has completely flipped to the point where Seattle are
5-11,
possibly struggling. 5-11,
5-11 too.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be a discussion.
We have a good NFC West thing going on.
Really?
What do you have the Rams at, Mark?
13-3.
Oh,
so.
14-2.
But I mean,
11-5. You guys
14-2.
You guys get
Oh.
carried away. Like winning that many games is really hard.
Yeah.
Like you're not just giving out.
We've got the number 38 player in the entire NFL quarterback in the Rams. Recently announced last night. That's some breaking news for you.
I've got the Rams at 12-4, which I thought was pretty good.
What games do they lose though? They lose to Minnesota. They lose to San Francisco in the last game of the season because they don't really care. No, they beat Philadelphia. 100%.
They lose to Minnesota. They lose at Seattle. They lose at New Orleans.
They always beat Seattle.
Yeah, I was going to say, even when the Rams were
New Orleans are irrelevant this year.
I have them losing at Seattle.
Wrong.
And I have them losing.
Can we just remember?
I have them losing at San Francisco.
Yeah.
Losing at home to Green Bay. Losing in Detroit. Losing in Chicago because that's going to be cold. And
is this the weather thing again? It's like
the weather report with Liam.
Soldier Field in December. No thanks.
The thing is as well is that when the Rams destroyed the Seahawks were injured left, right.
No, but like historically, even going into the Jeff Fisher era, which we cannot speak about, the Rams have always been in Seattle.
Yeah,
as a Rams fan, that was the game you look forward to. You're like, Seattle, they can do this one.
I think it's going to flip because I have Seattle being so average that they'll be up for the Rams at home.
Yeah,
and
maybe
the 12s,
actually.
The 12s come out and Russ just.
So what do you have Seattle at, Mark and Max and Liam?
7-9.
7-9.
Which I thought was still a pretty low, considering they're still going to have some pretty big hitters coming back.
The other thing to speak about is Arizona, because I have them at 4-12, and I don't want them at 4-12. But I don't want to get too big on them. I'm sorry, you can't look past David Johnson.
He's coming back. He's coming back, so he's good.
And if like you have, Sam Bradford, he of the glass knees. If he, it's a big if, but if he can actually play 8 games with David Johnson, with Larry Fitzgerald. I know it's like the dying dredges of a team and they're gripping on to like their past glories under Arians.
Christian Kirk's going to play.
Yeah.
I think the
new
thing
Larry
as well
Fitzgerald. And then Josh Rosen's not even, he's...
But that division is so tough. Like, San Francisco and the Rams are quite strong. The Seahawks can still do something.
The 49ers are not strong, though. Have you seen that defense?
They're really not. Like, I think Jimmy G's been expected to kind of cover up for a multitude of sins.
Do you know what? I'm so happy you guys are saying this because I went San Francisco 10-6 because I was worried that if I went for a lower record, you guys would start shouting at me, and I wanted you to be nice to me when it came to Carolina.
We're even-handed.
I think San Francisco are a quite good 8-8 team. I think Garoppolo's a great quarterback. Equally, I think he has some issues. I think their offense, they didn't do enough to address the things that they need, and their defense, no way do they do enough to address the things that they need.
I think the thing as well, if you go back and compare it to Atlanta from the Super Bowl 51 year, they had a great offense, but for defense, I mean, it was young and they had problems, and now all of a sudden they've got a good defense because they've worked on it.
Yeah.
San Francisco is in a similar situation, except they don't have the same weapons that Matt Ryan did.
Don't you think the Jimmy G could inspire that, like, sort of, let's get one up, let's
Definitely.
every play for
6 games? That's literally, I'm like, wow, the Niners are probably worth a few wins just for having Jimmy G.
Yeah.
I think he's very good. And then the Seahawks are probably worth a few wins because Russ is there.
Yeah.
And then for the Cardinals, it's the case of, well, can Bradford be functional a bit? How good's Larry Fitz and David Johnson going to be?
Yeah.
But what have Seattle gained? This is the thing, like, they just seem to have lost.
They haven't gained anything.
That's why they're going
They've
down.
gained a running back
But
to run behind.
and a punter.
If you haven't heard that rant by Max Liam, please do check it out. It's on our Twitter somewhere. It's absolutely hilarious with the Christmas music.
The thing about Arizona as well, which might save him a little bit, is if Bradford's knees do shatter again, he probably has the most ready backup of the 5 first-round quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if Rosen did have to step in, there'd be no expectation because I don't think anyone's expecting Arizona to do
especially
anything.
with Rosen having dropped the way he has.
Yeah.
And I know he got angry, like 9 guys shouldn't have been taken before me, blah, blah, blah. But actually, that might help him because no one's really talking about Rosen the same way they're talking about Darnold and Mayfield. And even to a way, Jackson, just by him being Action Jackson.
Who does everyone know who Rosen's mentor is? So there's certain Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
legit pals.
Yeah,
So-
I've seen that on Instagram and whatnot.
So that's not too
To the
bad.
point- to the
That's
point-
scary.
To the point, Rosen's just signed with Adidas for that very reason. So
Oh, that's
don't read
scary.
too much into.
It's a good time to be a Cardinals fan, I think. I mean, it isn't because you've
This is
lost
the thing.
Arians,
I
who's
think the
probably
thing
one of
is,
the best
though,
coaches in the NFL. But
If you're an Arizona fan, you're just going to have to be patient and you're going to have to wait. But I
Yeah.
think that will pay off. The other
Yeah.
thing with Arizona too is they lost Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. The safety.
Matthew, yeah. To
One of the best in the game,
Texans, yeah.
and they've just given him to Houston.
Well, he's one of the best of the game when he's used in the right system and when Arians can get out of him what he did get out of him. It was really, I don't know if you guys have seen the All or Nothing.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the chat we had last week about how best to use Jabril Peppers?
Yeah.
I see those, like, the best way to use Jabril Peppers is the way that Tyrann Mathieu used.
Which is like sometimes
Yeah.
a slot corner,
Yeah,
sometimes
like a
your free
gadget
safety,
DB, basically.
sometimes a linebacker, sometimes a blitzer. Like he is just a thing that you can use, and Arians was able to for whatever reason. And like I was saying on that All or Nothing that they did with the Cardinals, you could see the relationship that Arians had with Matthew was such that he could get out of Matthew things that other coaches may not be able to get out of him. And I wonder if Bill O'Brien will have that same relationship with him.
Well,
but
there's
he is a big loss to the Cardinals for sure.
There's a little piece available from NFL Network about Tyrann Mathieu, his draft story.
Yeah.
And because he was basically kicked off the team at LSU and all that stuff, and it was Arians who brought him in and Patrick Peterson together. But yeah, does anyone have anything other than the Rams cakewalk in it and no one else getting into the playoffs?
Well, I have San
No.
Francisco making the playoffs, but I mean that may
I
just
had
be
them, and then I said that can't be right.
It could happen. It could genuinely happen. I
Yeah.
just don't see it. If anything, if there's one team that I see joining the Rams in the playoffs, it's the Seahawks. Because
Because of Russ.
to a degree, yeah.
I think it's under, like, how highly I rate Russell Wilson. You could see that happening more than the Niners coming through.
Yeah.
Because of Russ.
Yeah.
He's that kind
And
of
I think
player.
Well, he was responsible for like 90-something% of their offense last year.
He had a hand in all but one of their touchdowns.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's one rushing touchdown.
Not
They
scored by Russell
not
Wilson.
scored by
Yeah.
him.
Yeah,
The
it's
entire
insanity.
season.
My worry though is Seattle are becoming what Baltimore started becoming a couple of years ago, where you've got this coach who's had success and it's been a very successful team, whatnot, and then it all kinds of start falling off a track a little bit. There's people leaving, people getting injured, people retiring. You kind of got a good couple of players there, and then you've got this coach who was really, really good doing what he was doing before, and now they're trying to do a complete 180 from defense to offense. Yet their draft didn't really reflect that at all.
No, don't think it was very well planned out.
And I don't know.
So you've all got Rams at 1.
Yeah.
Then San Francisco at 2.
Yeah.
Or Seattle at
I have
2.
San Francisco at 4, so
I've got them at 2, to be fair.
Yeah.
Someone is not riding the Jimmy G hype train there.
I'm absolutely not.
Choo choo.
Confirmed. No.
I
But
do
there
have
again,
them-
it's all very much. They're all 6 and 2 threes. It's all.
Yeah.
They're all in the same kind of.
So that is just kind of San Francisco, Seattle, and Arizona. And out of those 3, we're kind of thinking Seattle may be the one to rise up, or Mark thinks it may be San
I think
Francisco.
Seattle-
In
It's gonna
fairness,
bomb.
I've got the 49ers at 8 and 8.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks at 7 and 9.
I have Seahawks at 5 and 11. I'm not seeing them doing anything. Like, I just think they've lost and lost, and they're not going to come up back from it until they make some big changes.
I'm happy to defer because basically it makes no difference.
I think the only team to make the playoffs from the West will be the Rams next year.
You are why.
Liam, during that song, made a comment about how he'd love to be in a hotel lobby drinking coffee, which was then followed by Mark saying, "Oh no, an underground jazz bar." And then Liam said, "No, because that would mean it was night and it was smoky and I'd want to be in bed." And then he went, I went to bed at 8:30 last night. To which Mark replied, "AM or PM?" Yeah, we're not all animals like you, Mark. Some of us do have sleeping patterns. Right, NFC South, the exciting division, and thankfully, because of the way we structure the show, we have a whole 13 minutes to go through it, which is actually more than we had last week for the AFC South. So that sounded sarcastic, but it wasn't.
I mean, that's my affliction. I don't know if you've heard.
Yeah,
I just always sound
sarcastic, no matter what. Right, big moment for me.
Here we go.
We're going to do a 3-2-1, and we'll all say who we have winning the division.
Oh, God.
3, 2, 1.
New Orleans.
I have the Panthers winning.
Yes, Liam, my guy. I wish I had a children yaying sound effect ready, but I don't. You've got New Orleans.
The top 3 teams in the division are all within one game of each other.
Really?
11 and 5 New Orleans, Atlanta 11 and 5 making the wild card, Carolina 10 and 6 just missing out.
No,
Tampa 5 and 11.
No, I have
Tampa 3 and 13.
I have Panthers 11 and 5.
Yeah.
Falcons 11 and 5.
Really?
Panthers get the edge.
Yeah.
Then I have the Saints at 9 and 7, missing the playoffs, and and Tampa with a gentleman's 3 and 13.
Yeah, I mean,
I've got Carolina 3 and 13. This could be the introduction of a brand new segment. We'll
Carolina
more on that
3
in a
and
second.
13.
13 and 3, sorry. I'm ever so sorry. Yeah. That's because I was thinking about losses.
Carolina win the division at 3 and 13.
New Orleans at 11 and 5. Then Atlanta at 9 and 7. They're the team that I'm not so big on. And then Tampa at 6 and 10.
I have New Orleans 11 and 5, Carolina 10 and 6, Atlanta 9 and 7.
Right, it's time for a brand new segment.
Oh, this is interesting. This is going to be.
I've spoken to you about it before. It's not completely brand new. Have you ever seen that meme where it's the alt-right journalist from America who goes to college campuses with an inflammatory statement and says, "Change my mind"?
Yeah.
So this segment is called "Change My Mind." Mark, if you, in your 5 seconds, can come up with a jingle while I explain it. Basically, what we'll do is someone will come up with a statement that they have to defend. It's the job of the other 3 players to change their mind. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You guys, if you are listening, can vote on whether you think my mind should be changed or not. Any ideas, Mark? Changes, come and change my mind.
There you go. Change. There you go. We got it.
Great. So, good. Carolina will go 13 and 3 next season. Change my mind. And let me explain it to you why. Firstly, so looking at their schedule, the 3 games that I have them losing at Atlanta, at Philadelphia, and at New Orleans in the last week of the season, I don't think they will lose a single other game. Change my mind.
I have now. Bearing in mind, I have them winning the
bearing in mind
division.
you're a friend.
I have them winning the division at 11 and 5.
Yeah.
But I see them losing at Atlanta.
Yeah.
Losing in Philly.
Yeah.
Losing in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Interesting.
Losing in Detroit.
Yep.
And
Also
then losing the last game of the season because it's irrelevant at New Orleans.
The only difference we have is I have Carolina losing an away game to Tampa.
And I got to do some
Why are you laughing? 2 years ago, Tampa swept Carolina. What?
That was when we were bad.
It must be said. I have them losing to Pittsburgh on the 11th of November because it'll probably be cold. Like that was my thought process.
And Detroit.
Well, you know, Detroit. They're probably.
Liam has actually done a weather forecast. He's looked at the 3-month or 6 month in advance
weather for December.
I mean, I wish I could say otherwise, but I mean, really, it's 11 and 5, and I have them winning it.
Yeah. But with Pittsburgh, I think that's the kind of game where I think, in fairness, we will lose a game against a team that we shouldn't lose. So I'm looking at
Detroit.
Yeah, maybe like Washington in week 6 could be that game. Tampa equally could be that game. Cleveland, dare I say it, because Carolina always do that where they have just a kind of brain fart at one stage in the season. Last year it was Chicago. Year before that it was quite a lot of games. But I think that Pittsburgh is the kind of game where the opposite happens, and we get this crazy Cam who comes out, and we get this crazy Panthers team who come out, and they have an incredible game. And that, when the Panthers show up, they're one of the most unstoppable teams in the league. It's just about whether they can consistently show up over a 17-week season.
Yeah, I'd back them to win double-figure games. I just don't back them to win 13 games.
I think a game against Pittsburgh, I know exactly what you mean. Pittsburgh are a weird team where I think last year they won 7 games or something within 7 points.
Yeah.
A lot of those were won by last-minute field goals. Carolina are the sort of team that I can see going out there and causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, I don't know Carolina, something like 7 of Carolina's wins, I think, last year came within 7 points. It's two quite similar teams. That was more to do with we'd get ahead in the first 3 quarters, and then Shula would come in and do run up the middle on first down for a yard, run up the middle on second down for a yard, run up the middle on third down for a yard, punt the ball.
But the difference with Pittsburgh to Carolina is Pittsburgh should be better. Okay. Pittsburgh, based on their offense alone, should be so much better, and they're not. Whereas Carolina, the last couple of years, have had problems, but they find Cam Newton finds his way to win the game. They went and beat Minnesota last year. I think they ended their winning streak, didn't they? So they're a team very capable of doing that. 13 is very high.
I don't know if this is because I'm a Panthers fan or just the nature of the team, but when I watch them play a live game, I always feel like they're not playing well, and yet they always come out with a win. It's kind of like the Manchester United of the noughties. They didn't play well, but they'd come out with the win.
I was actually going to compare them to England rugby from the last 2 or 3 years. They win, but they really
you never come away from it. Well, there are some Panthers games where you come away thinking, wow. But they're all equally, a lot of Panthers games you're like, phew.
They're one of those teams where, like you say, even if they're playing terrible, there's always the chance that something big could come out of nowhere. And there's a lot of teams that you can't say that for. Yeah. Like if the Bears are playing bad, you're like, well, the Bears are done. But with the Panthers, you're like,
What I will say to conclude the segment, so we can talk about the rest of the NFC South as well. I don't want to make this all about Panthers. That's not really my personality. You have succeeded in changing my mind to an extent. I think now they will probably go either 11-5 or 12-4.
It's just really tough. It's really tough, and the fact is the field is so tough.
The consistent team to go 13-3. They're not like New England.
10-6, but I can see them going 11-5 just because, it's completely what Max said. It's just what they do. I think in the weekly pick'em, there'll be one of those teams that I'll be like, oh come on, it's Carolina, anyone can beat them, because they just don't seem to do anything, and yet they still seem to win. So they seem to have so many plays on the bad plays reel because none of their receivers can catch, or Cam Newton just fires it to the middle of nowhere because there's some miscommunication. But they still seem to come out with the win, so it kind of doesn't matter.
My logic on the other teams as well, I can see the Saints dropping off because it's the same thing. Ingram's suspended for the first 4 games.
They've got Kamara.
Kamara's the same kind of player.
Sophomore slump.
Sophomore
fair. Slump. Breeze is a year older.
I think that beyond that, there's what we saw in the wildcard game against the Panthers was the Panthers shutting down that run game and making Breeze step up, and he did step up because he's Drew Brees. But then the question is, if other teams decide to do that and just focus on shutting down the run game, the Panthers were the only team last year to hold Ingram and Kamara to under 100 yards combined.
Which is insane, really.
That's insane.
And that should be enough to win a game, and then Drew Brees came in and was like, ha, joke's on you, I'm Drew Brees. But if teams can do that across a 17-week season, as good as Drew Brees is, I don't think he will be able to step up every week a la Rodgers or a la Brady.
See, this is the thing that gets me, and that's why I've got New Orleans still winning, because it's the same thing that people say every year about Brady, or even maybe a Rodgers, I don't know, or even Roethlisberger, because he's not bad. I mean, he broke the record last year for the most 500-yard games ever. Drew Brees is in that category.
I think
for
me though, the issue that Drew Brees is fantastic, and there's no disputing that. The fact that you got Atlanta and Carolina there, and the Saints defense isn't that great, really. I would have a hard time saying, well, they're going to shut down the Falcons. Yeah. And their D isn't as good as the Falcons. And the same can be said for the Panthers. And their D isn't as good as the Panthers D. So it's basically, is Drew Brees going to carry them home? and I have him carrying them to 9 wins.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty damn good, right?
That is fair. The thing with Atlanta as well, if anything, Atlanta are probably the most complete team because the offense just has weapons left, right, and center. The defense has been completely revamped over the last 2-3 years, and they're actually a scary team. And they're one of those teams as well. Like if they click, like the offense should, and it frustrates me that Julio Jones can go from 1 week 300 yards, next week 20 yards. Frustrates me so much to actually watch that because if they did that every week, there is no way you can beat them.
Yeah, I think that comes down to coordinating, and I think it also comes down to. I know I hate a lot on Matt Ryan. He's a great quarterback, don't get me wrong, but he's not Drew Brees, is he? He's not going to carry the team in the same way in occasions where the rest of the team is letting him down. He still needs his running backs to be capable. He still needs that receiving core to be capable,
but
which they both are.
He doesn't need
to. Playoffs last year on 9-7.
Atlanta. They made it on 9-7.
This is the division where all 3 of them could get in.
Yeah, I have 2 coming in from this division.
I have 2 coming in, and the Saints being unlucky.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I think because you've got Green Bay coming back as well, that's like the 5th team that are going to cause problems.
Yeah,
I mean, in terms of like
wildcard play.
Yeah.
So I have the Panthers and Atlanta getting in.
I have the Panthers and Saints getting in.
I've got Panthers and Saints.
I've got Saints and Falcons, and the Panthers being the 3rd team. But I do feel uncomfortable saying the Panthers won't make the playoffs.
So it seems like so it's like what
I mean, we haven't addressed Tampa very much, but the consensus seems to be that they won't make the playoffs.
The only thing I will say about Tampa is this: offensively, weapons great. Still haven't done anything to defensive line, which concerns me a great deal. Defensively,
I mean, you got a new defensive line. Could be something interesting.
True, but.
And Vita Vea.
For me, this is a make or break year for Tampa. This is Jameis's 4th year, which means it's a contract year. It's 3rd year for Dirk Cutter. If nothing happens this year, something big has to change.
We've just had a message in. Mohamed Sanu is the best quarterback on the Falcons. You can't shake that 158.3 passer rating. So right, coming up with some kind of consensus order then, and then I'll try and quickly run through everything before time is up. At 4 Tampa, we'll work from the bottom.
Yeah.
And then
3 Atlanta.
So
I've got Atlanta at 3.
I have the Saints at 3, but it seems like you guys all have it.
I've got Atlanta at 2, so I'm happy to bring them down to 3. I can't bring New Orleans down to 3.
Yeah. So Atlanta at 3. Then it's the top 2, which question marks are over.
And I come back to my argument about whether or not I just think Carolina are going to do it. They're going to do them this year.
Yeah.
After last year, I just see
it's our time.
I can see that happening.
Keep pounding.
I would be happy to put Carolina first.
You wouldn't be.
I would.
Oh, okay.
Is this the moment?
As long as the Saints make the playoffs.
Is this the moment?
Well, this is what we call negotiation, guys.
Yeah.
This is because now I think about it, I feel uncomfortable in Atlanta 3rd because I've got them on like a 9-game winning streak. The middle of their season's pretty easy.
To be fair,
I mean, all 3 of them could well get in.
Because I ran it all the way to the
where.
Super Bowl. I have both Carolina and New Orleans going out in the first round of the playoffs. So I mean, it's kind of a moot point. So
I'm happy for Carolina to go first.
Yeah, I'm happy for it to go Carolina, then New Orleans.
Carolina at 1, New Orleans at 2, Atlanta at 3, and Tampa at 4. I can't believe this happened. Not only are Carolina at 1, but we've actually finished the show on time for once.
Wow.
We have about 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
So yeah, briefly about the YouTube channel. What I'm going to try and do is chop up this show, and that will be our first upload. So I will tweet out the link, obviously, also to the show on Mixcloud. We will still keep tweeting out Mixcloud links just because they're convenient, but hopefully, if everything goes to plan, then we will get the YouTube as well. We'll be on the YouTubes. We'll be back next week. Me and Max, at least, will be with some kind of show. Stay tuned on our Twitter for that. But for now, see you later. Say bye to Mark and Liam, who will be here for 2 weeks.
Well, debatable. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, bye guys. See you later. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you have a lovely Tuesday.